Yeah, for those wondering, I am actually getting after this car. It's taking me some time. Don't mind that piece of trim. I didn't feel like taking the back tire off to get the two screws out that hold hands. It ain't gonna make any difference. I'm not driving it, so it'll be fine until I can get time to do that. But anyway, taking the back of the car off, you know, the bumper was gonna have to be replaced, and there was a filler panel in between the bumper, and basically that whole section is one piece that holds the taillights in. I mean, the quarter extensions are separate, but I've never taken one apart before. I've had several of them and just never done it. Well, anyway, the car had been hitting the back, and this has been up a little bit and pushed in. I did beat it back into submission to where it got out the same distance as that one. Over that one's turned because the bumpers are so heavy. I just turned it as it come down. It can be straightened up, but that's no big deal, because those are those 5 mile an hour, 3 mile an hour shock exhaust, whatever they are. But anyway, I don't know if it's bent. I really have to put it up on jack stands, you know, and just hope the frame is straight, then just decide from there whether something is actually bent or is it just my eye. Because once you took this bumper and stuff off, this car sits a lot higher in the back now. I'll walk over the other side because I'm up against the garage door, so I'm not giving you a good. It doesn't look like it sits higher, but trust me, it's higher than it was. Well, anyway, here's what the deal was. Started working on this yesterday, and I started sanding on it. That black paint that they put on last is like a perma sticky. I was actually using a 4.5 inch grinder with one of those tiger wheel, the sandpaper wheels on it, and it plugged it up almost instantly, and so it was really tearing up my sander, which I don't have a big enough compressor to do this kind of work either. But so I actually went down to a chemical stripper, which I do not like using personally, and as you can see, it still didn't even want to take some of the black off, and I've actually been sanding on this some. But anyway, it is coming off. It's just really fighting me to do it. The reason it has to go down to the steel is because, unfortunately, that's the primer. It was original, and you can see that those you know, it actually cracked the paint, and you can see what it's done to the bare steel, and it's been like that for quite a while. And this happens a lot. There's some that hasn't been messed with, and the roof has a whole bunch on it. And so the paint on these, mind you, the car's 40 years old plus, and this is what you run into. And it's a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of work to try to clean this up. You can see it's all over the trunk. You can kind of see the etch marks even in this corner of the quarter. Anyway, and then you can see that it was a vinyl roof car, and they've actually mudded it at one time. The other side's even worse. Because like I said, I took that down to steel several years ago, starting body work, and then gave up because of how bad it was. I knew it was going to have a quarter, and at the time I wasn't wasn't able to do that. Anyway, I am taking it down. The rest of it has come off pretty decent. I have found mud in several places. There's a dent here, and actually they had this thing, and you can still see just a little bit. I'm not quite done. All the way to the end they had a little mud there. Got some down there by that rust spot. This is really the only rust, the open rust on this quarter is here. I bet you there was some there, and they just mudded it up. And then there was, you can see where they drilled a hole and used the old school slide hammer to pull that, and then they didn't weld that hole up. That will be done before I paint it. And then I found a bunch of mud here. I don't know where it starts. It looks like it's in. That dent there, it may be hard to see in the camera. It actually starts here and then goes, oops, right to there, and then it bent this piece of trim. I actually did that several years ago. Matter of fact, not too long after I got it. I actually was, at the time we were allowed to drive into the place that I worked. Now you have to walk in or drive. I mean, I've got a better setup, but most people have to either ride a bus in or whatever. But we had a flood here in 2007, and I just got this car then, and I was driving it back and forth, and anyway I ended up there was concrete blocks there, and I was messing around and come sliding in, messing with somebody. It was standing there. I was kind of half showing off and slid into a, you know, I didn't hit it then. Is when I went to go leave. It's like, hey, way to go, that was real smart. Showing off is always number one, right? Anyway, so I'm getting some stuff done to this, so I just thought I'd give you a quick update before I mask it off. And I'm going to have to prime it for, I've got to work the next 2 days, and it's been real moist in the mornings. Everything's covered with dew, and I don't want to have to do everything 2 or 3 times, so I'll just cover it up with a light coat of primer. I will eventually, of course, do a good seal and prime once I find out all the dead spots in this. I know there's a few hail dents in the trunk, and then you can't see this, of course, but right here, there's actually a high spot here. I'll have to open the trunk and see if I can see something that pushed up on it, but it's a little loose. I can actually hear it, so I'll have to look into that. I do have some hammer and dollies and stuff. There was some mud here too. Now I feel why. There's actually a dent from here to there. Anyway, I'll have to, there's some work that's going to be done. I may even have to find, there's still some mud there, and there's some there, and then there's some on this corner. I may just go find another trunk lid, since I have to go find a fender anyway, and tail lights and a bumper. There was a place down in Texas that had several of these things listed, so I might run down there and do it. Okay, now, with that being said, I told you on one of the last videos that I have a bit of a dilemma. Let me open the hood and I'll explain it to you. Sorry about that. This hood's very heavy. Okay, here's the deal. Let me get the leaf out of here. This is a 30/305. I built it with the flat top pistons and a IROC Z cam, which is flat tappet. Those years I did this. It's kind of like an LG4, basically, if anybody remembers those. It would have been in the Z28 Camaros, Firebirds, the stuff that would have had the 305 4 barrel along with the Super Sport Monte Carlo. But either way, it has a way too big 770 Holly Street Avenger on it, which I may have mentioned before. And it's had a miss. I know I've explained this to you, and so I've got to do something different. And so here's my thought. I had a 60/400 block ready to go, and I had another 400 the guy wanted the block for, so it hadn't been apart. I loaded everything up, and I know I've told you this, and took everything down to the machine shop, found both heads cracked. 400s require steam ports, which I'm sure I can drill. If I had a head gasket, I could drill them myself. It's not that big of a deal, and just use a 350 head, which is still a possibility. What I'm running into is they're wanting me to use a different size of rod to use a 60/0 flat top piston. I could cheat and use a dish piston and find a 67cc like a Vortec head possibly, but I kind of don't want to change this intake, and because it starts running so much money doing that. So I have a 383 that came out of this car that's still running drove. It was just wore out, smoked and stuff, and it had roller rockers, screw-in studs, flat top pistons, 268 comp cam. It had the same carburetor on it, and with this 700 R4, it was boy, it was fun. It wouldn't go into overdrive till 55 or 60. It got crappy gas mileage because of the 770, but it had low first, second gear. It was an old school 700R, one of the first few years they made them. Worked really well. But anyway, so I could pull that out. I've already got another 268, and the reason I'm not going anything big is it doesn't need to be a big old lumpy cam, and you know, where you have to run a stall and change gears and all, because if wherever he goes, he may end up having to drive this car, because the military will move one car for you, but you have to drive the other, which is fine. But you know, I understand that, you know, he doesn't want to have to pay for the second one to be moved. He wants to be able to drive it, and whether his wife drives hers and this is towed or whatever, it really doesn't make any difference. I'm just trying to figure out a way that this could be a very streetable, doable car. So as I've told you in the past, I want to, I think on the first video, I want a fuel injection nest. Well, by the time I pull that apart, have all the machine work done, put it back together, yes, I'll have another 383, and it will run good. They're very, of course, dependable, and it's a Chevrolet. What can you say? But that's still an awful lot of work, and the motor hadn't even been tore down yet. So here's my next possibility. I know this is a lifter that's bad in this. I could pull the top of the motor off, pull the lifters out, stick another set of lifters in. It doesn't have very many miles on it. I don't even think it's got 2,000 miles on this motor. So changing lifters on this cam, it's not recommended, but it's a possibility. I have that 268 I could put in here. That's a bit big for this motor, but would work. Or because it's a roller block, I could buy a set of roller, all the stuff that goes with it. Now, mind you, that's kind of a pain because I don't have any of the roller stuff for it. So I'm going to have to buy the deal that holds the lifters in place, and that little deal that bolts to the top that holds all the lifters in place, or the, you know, the little, it doesn't matter. If you ever seen one apart, you know what I was talking about. Of course, then I have to change the cam, which is more expensive, and then you have to have a retainer for the cam, and a different timing chain, I believe. And I know I'm going to have to change the gear on the distributor, and so I could do that. Also, I have 3 or 4 things that could possibly happen, and the boy I know would not mind having that 383 back in. And because I already have the complete top end set for it, originally it was going in at 400, so I bought everything, springs and, you know, everything you'd need. It was a complete kit. So I don't know, I'll kick this around some more and decide what I'm going to do, because this thing doesn't have very many miles on it, and it's actually a really good running motor when it's running on all 8. It just doesn't run on all 8 very long or very often. So anyway, I'll make that decision. I'll maybe talk to the boy about it and stuff, but we'll just kind of have to see. And I'm working on this thing outside the house because I don't have a compressor over at the building yet, and I pulled the Mustang out yesterday and put this car in the garage and worked on it in there a little bit, and it's just such a hassle moving stuff around every time. The battery's dead in this thing, and I have a quick disconnect on it because this battery's no good. Yes, I know it's going to have a new battery someday, but if I, you know, it's like right now I don't really need it. So anyway, I'm tired of talking. I'm sure you're tired of listening. So anyway, I just thought I'd show you where I'm at right now on this, that I'm actually getting stuff done on it. It's a lot of work. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it, and the body shop guys would charge you near as much as they do. But I'm telling you, this is work, and to do it right especially. So anyway, I'm going to get out of here, and I'll talk to you guys later on.